Aloha and welcome to iTeach808, Empowering Hawaii's Teachers in Technology Conference, sponsored by the Augustine Educational Foundation and Sacred Hearts Academy, Honolulu. My name is David Ninomiya, and I'll be facilitating this session. We're so honored to have Michael Fricano join us today and share his experience through a 45-minute presentation named Saving the World with Cardboard and Code. Please be aware that we'll be recording this session. If you don't like being recorded, you may consider turning off your camera during the session or viewing the recording afterwards. The recording will be made available on YouTube and shared on iTeach808's website a week after this event. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for the intros. Thanks everyone for joining me this morning on a Saturday, but it's the iTeach808 conference, so it's always a great time. For this session, I'm going to be talking about a project that I've co-developed with my colleague at Iolani School. I'll get to that. I'll introduce myself a little bit. So my name is Michael Fricano, and I'm one of two K-6 design and technology teachers at Iolani School. So the two of us, we co-teach a new design and technology class that is given to all kindergartens through 6th grade students at Iolani School. They rotate through us as a specials class through this rotational schedule. But they all get to come to our lab and learn programming and engineering and design, construction, learning various tools, laser cutting, things like that. And one project that we've been working on developing, we're still sort of in maybe at the end phase of this, so it's still in development. But we think it's a pretty fun project that we've developed where it's a combination of programming with Dash. Familiar, Dash is a programmable robot for younger elementary students, and it uses a block-based programming language. So we're taking the skills of programming with Dash and combining it with cardboard construction and learning various tools and safety around those tools, and then kind of tying it all together with the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, developed by the United Nations. And there's a kid-friendly version of that called the Climate Action Superheroes I'll introduce to you today. So we've kind of combined all these things into this big culminating project that we'd like to call Saving the World with Cardboard and Code. So we'll get to it. I have a session website for this presentation. So if you go to this link, and I'll put it in the chat here, just copy it. So if you go to that link in the chat, it'll take you to this site here, which has the presentation embedded in it. It'll be accessible after today, so feel free to refer back to it. This is the presentation that I'm showing to you guys today. Okay, so I'm just going to run through what I hope to do. This is the first time I'm presenting on this, and actually, you guys are kind of my guinea pigs because my colleague and I were accepted to present this session at ISTE, at the ISTE conference this summer, and we're really looking forward to that. And so we're just excited about sharing this idea with others. So I'm just kind of run through the steps that we followed along the way in developing this project and how it's kind of laid itself out over the course of this past semester and how we've tied everything together. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, it's a combination of robotics programming, block-based programming, cardboard construction, learning construction techniques and learning how to use different tools appropriately and safely, and tying that into the Sustainable Development Goals. And if you're not familiar, they're pretty well known, but if you're not familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, they are a series of, I think of like 17 goals created, quite a while ago. I think it was back in 2011 or so when they were developed. They were developed by the United Nations and the countries in the United Nations. And there were goals that they strived to achieve. Actually, I think they were supposed to, like the goal is to have achieved them by 2022 or 2023. I'm sure we're not nearly close to achieving these big world goals, but they've moved in the right direction around the world. But they are goals that they call them the blueprint to achieving a better and more sustainable future. And these goals address global challenges, including poverty, inequality, climate change, environment degradation, and peace and justice, right? So there are these 17 goals that strive to do better, to fix the wrongs that the people of Earth have created, right? And to find ways to solve these big world problems, right? And they are big problems. And this is a project we've developed for first grade, right? So how can we take these big ideas, these big goals that really, honestly, is hard to grasp as a young child, and make them more kid friendly? And the United Nations has done that by creating these climate action superheroes. So they are a series, a collection of superheroes, and each superhero has a purpose, and that purpose is tied to one or more goals, but it's a simplified version of how we can strive as children, as young people, to help our world, right? And then the purpose of these superheroes is to empower students, children, to be heroic leaders, and to find ways that they can change the impact that they have on the world, and just to make them, help them to better understand what's happening around them, and that they have a part to play, right? And so this is slide 4. You can click on the link here. This is what the Climate Action Superheroes website looks like. And there are some printable resources here to help introduce students to these, but they are a series of this collection of superheroes. It's the Truth Talker, the Fume Fighter, and just by their names, you can kind of already guess like what their purpose is, right? Like the Fume Fighter is here to fight air pollution and the misuse of energy and fuel and things like that. Green Guide, Recycle Ranger. So really simplified versions of these goals, right? And really simplified concepts. So at the beginning of this project, we first introduced our first graders to the climate action superheroes. And for this particular project, we focused on 4 of them. I think there's actually like 8 or 9 of them. Veggie Vindicator, Energy Expert, Fashion Fixer, and Water Wizard. But we chose 4 just to make the planning and the flow of the project a little smoother. We didn't want too many choices available. And the idea around the 4 was being able a little further on in the project to group them up by superhero for a part that comes later on, which I'll talk about. So we focused on 4 of these superheroes. And to introduce students to this idea around the sustainable development goals and the climate action superheroes, we start with this great video, a very kid-friendly video called "The World's Largest Lesson," and it's a YouTube video, and it's kicked off by an introduction by Malala, and then it goes into this very cartoony story that introduces in very simple terms some of the problems that the world faces, and then later on, right, so it talks about how we find trash in the ocean and on beaches, and we have all these landfills, and that's a huge problem for the world because it's just piling up, right? And then it talks a little bit about poverty and how access to health services is not equal all over the world, right? So it kind of does a little bit talks about like school and how we tell our kids, like, you guys are in school every day. You might not like being here all the time, but you have access to school. There are kids around the world that don't have a school to go to, and therefore they can't get a good quality education. And education is important, right? Because it makes us smarter and it helps us think more about the world we live in. And if we think harder, we can come up with better solutions, right? So taking these big world problems and trying to simplify them into terms that first graders can understand. But then what's really cool, what I like about this video, is it talks about different creatures around the world have different superpowers, right? Dogs have the superpower of smelling, and they have like a little pile of doo-doo here, but they can smell really good, right? Humans don't have the same type of smelling abilities as dogs, right? And birds right? Birds can fly. That's their superhero, and that's their superpower. Humans can't fly on their own. We have machines that do that, right? But what I like about the concept of this is that in the end they get to the fact that the humans, our superpower is our brains, right? And we're able to, even though we've created a lot of problems, we have the power and the ability to come up with wild and crazy solutions that can solve these problems. And that's our superpower. And so we lead our first graders with that and saying, you guys have these powerful brains and the world needs your help. And so as part of this project, we're going to work together to try to come up with some of these solutions to help solve the world's problems. Okay, but we have to do this together, and that is our superpower. Okay, and so following along with this idea of superpowers, we introduce students to the climate action superheroes. And here's a league of superheroes. They each have a purpose. They each have powers that help to achieve these sustainable development goals that the United Nations and all these countries have agreed to doing. And so the sort of like the gist of this project is they're going to take Dash, and they're familiar with Dash already. We spent a whole semester in kindergarten learning how to program Dash and what Dash does. So they're going to take their Dash robot and they're going to turn him into a climate action superhero. And they're going to build things for Dash to help him achieve his purpose as a climate action superhero. So that's the whole idea here, is taking the robot they're familiar with and reimagining him as something else, which is this climate action superhero. So to get to that next step, once they've learned about the climate action superheroes, we introduce them to 4 of them: Veggie Vindicator, Recycle Ranger, Energy Expert, and Fume Fighter. And after learning about what each one's purpose is and what they do and what problems they're trying to solve, then as individuals, they rank those 4. Knowing that they're going to turn Dash into one of them, we have them rank their 4 superheroes. What's their number 1 choice for turning Dash into, their number 2, 3, and 4. And then once they rank them, then my colleague and I, we determine their choice, and it was either all the students, we either gave them their first or second choice. But what we wanted to do was give them a choice that allows them to then group up with other students with the same superhero. There's a purpose for that later, right? So we wanted to get them in, and mostly, for the most part, equal groups of superheroes. And they were able to get either their first or second choice. So once they were given their choice, they knew what superhero they're going to turn their Dash into. Then we moved into a planning phase. Okay. So once they know their superhero, we move into planning. And the first thing they're going to plan to do and build is a cart that Dash can transport in this mission that he's going to take on later in the project. Okay, so we introduce them to this cart that they're going to make using different construction techniques, and we show them a version of the cart. And once they know that this is what I'm going to make for Dash, what is my cart going to look like, and what is my cart going to carry? What is the purpose of this cart for my climate action Dash? And so we give them this design and planning sheet with 3 sections, and they draw and color their ideas for what the purpose of this cart will be for their specific Dash, right? So like, some students, if they had Veggie Vindicator, they made a cart that's going to transport fruits and vegetables, right? So they took the basic version of that cart and added some details to it and designed it. And then in the box for what will the cart carry, they drew some examples of the fruits and vegetables that Dash would carry. And then if students had any other ideas for attachments or accessories for their climate action Dash, they could draw those in the bottom box. So like some kids, like if they were the Fume Fighter climate action superhero, they drew, like a lot of them drew like a vacuum backpack for Dash that he would carry and suck up all the pollution from the air, right? Or if they were an energy expert, they carried around solar panels that could create renewable energy and electricity that they could then deliver to people in the community. So they came up with these ideas for attachments and accessories, and they could draw that and color it here. So they planned out what they wanted their cart to look like and what the purpose of their cart was. Okay. Once they had a plan in place, then we moved on to our first construction project. And for the cart, for each construction project involved here, we wanted to teach them a construction technique, something that would allow them to build that cart in a uniform and clean way so that it would work later on in their mission. And so for this first step in the dash cart, we taught them something called the L brace, which is simply taking a flat piece of cardboard, scoring it down the middle to create a folding line, and then bending it into an L shape. And they would create 4 of these to build the walls of their cart. Right? So we taught them the L brace technique, introduced it to them, showed, demonstrated the purpose of the L brace, that it's going to become the walls of your cart, showed them the steps for making one, how to measure and cut out of cardboard. And for this, we did like a cardboard drive at the beginning of the year where we collected cereal box or snack box. I think you call it like paperboard, like really thin, easily bendable, thin cardboard that's really easy for kindergarten and first graders to cut. So we use that type of cardboard here. And then along with it, we introduced a new tool. So they're learning a construction technique, and they're also learning a tool. And this particular tool comes from a company called Make Do. You see it in the middle here. It looks like a saw on one end because it's a safe cardboard cutting tool. We didn't use the saw. What we focused on was this pointy little tip at the other end. And this is a scoring tool. So we have the kids trace a line down the middle of their cardboard, and then they take the tip of the Make Do tool here, and they press down and create a scoring line down the middle of the cardboard that makes the cardboard easier to fold. Because you show them, like, if you don't create a scoring tool or a scoring line and you try to fold this, typically when you fold cardboard, it likes to bend in all different places and it gets really messy and it's not a clean folding line. So we teach them how to use the scoring tool to create a clean folding line so they get a nice, neat L shape out of that cardboard. Okay. And then on top of that, of course, we discuss safety and appropriate use of scissors, because they're using scissors to cut tools, and they're first graders. They know, but we review those kinds of things with them, and then they build their cart. Right. So you see an example here with the kid. He's got his 4 L brace walls that he placed on top of a larger piece of cardboard. These kids did really well and successful in creating the cart. You kind of see like an end product here on the left with Dash. So the idea was they create the cart. We'll get to the next step with the wheels in a second. But the way the cart is attached is we built a little Lego platform in the back, and we just tape it. And then when Dash drives, the cart follows, right? So he's transporting the cart with him. So that was construction technique number 1 as part of the build project. And then the next construction technique is the wheel and axle. And for this, my colleague and I, we pre-cut wheels and straws and skewer sticks for this. So we did a lot of pre-work on this one. So we gave them the parts of the wheel and axle. And then the purpose of this construction technique was to teach them how to safely use a hot glue gun. Okay, so we taught first graders how to hot glue things together safely and appropriately. And so they took the parts that we created, and they attached them and glued them together to create their wheel and axle. And basically, it's 2 wheels glued to a skewer stick, but in the middle is a loose straw. And then what we did, I had a picture here, but then the student would hot glue the straw part to the bottom of the cart, which would allow the wheel and axle to spin freely when Dash drives on the mat on the floor, which we'll see a little later, right? So they learned the L brace to make the cart, then they learned the wheel and axle technique and learned how to safely use hot glue to build the wheel and axle. And to do this, we taught the L brace first so that students could work independently on building their cart. And while they were working on their cart, we pulled them in small groups to our carpet. And my colleague here, Mrs. Nakamoto, she showed them how the wheel and axle gets put together. She introduced them to the hot glue, and then they moved to a hot glue station while the teacher assisted them if they needed it. And they were responsible for gluing their wheel and axle together and then to their carts. We did that in small groups to help manage the use of the hot glue guns while they were working on something independently. And then if there were any early finishers, if kids finished up the cart, wheel, and axle quickly, what they were allowed to do was then, it was an opportunity for them to express a little bit of creative freedom, and they could build, draw, cut, and build the things that they wanted to go in the cart. So that's what they could do if they finished early, if they had time. So they could, create fruits and vegetables. Some kids created pollution vacuums out of straws and string. Others created solar panels and charging cables out of pipe cleaners. So they had access to all these different materials that they could then use to build more things, to build things for the inside of the cart. This is an opportunity for them to take the plans on their paper and use their creativity and their imagination to create things that their climate action dash could use. And then once they were done with their cart, we gave them a certain, I think it was like two or three classes. Sorry, I lost my AirPod. To work on that, we had to move on to the next step, which was the climate action dash mission. So why are we building all this cart for Dash? Okay? And so the mission was broken into three parts, right? So the first, as you can see here, the first was to design and construct 5 different obstacles. So let me back up a little bit. So the students have this giant white mat, and this is what we typically use when we're programming Dash in our class. So Dash drives around on this mat for different challenges and programming projects. So each team was given a mat, and we grouped them up into teams of 3, and the group of 3 were all had the same superhero. So they were building for the same superhero. Formed them in teams of 3. And then as a team, they had to design and construct 5 different obstacles. So you see these, like the car and the house, these different things standing up. These are obstacles for Dash. And the obstacles needed to fit with the theme of their climate action dash. They had to be problems that our climate action superhero would face. So for example, like I think this one was fume fighter. And so they came up with obstacles like, cars create pollution. I forget what the hell, I don't know if that's a gas station or something. That's like a gas station or something, like a gas pump, right? So the idea of like we use these fossil fuels and all these cars on the road create pollution. So that becomes their obstacles. And then they also had to design and construct an end goal. And you see that down here at the end. And the end goal represents the solution for climate action dash. So what is he trying to get to? What is his purpose and solution? So I think like for this team, their end goal was a park with a bunch of sports activities, right? So and I think the idea was like, walking or taking public transportation or something like that to help reduce the use of fossil fuels and to help reduce pollution in the air. So they create this end goal, and the last step of this project is that they create a program as a team so that Dash safely drives around the obstacles and then ends up at the end goal, right? So he avoids the bad things and gets himself to the solution. Okay, so that's the idea here around the climate action dash mission. Okay, now a couple different parts here. So we had to teach them more skills, or not just teach them a couple skills, but also give them opportunities to apply what they've learned. Okay, so the first step in this mission development is the obstacles, creating the obstacles. And here, they didn't learn a new skill. This was an opportunity for them to apply the skill they learned with the L brace and apply the skills they learned around the new tools, the scoring tool, the hot glue gun. So right in the beginning of the project, we taught them these new skills. Now we want to give them an opportunity to apply them further in developing things of their own design. So students apply the L brace and a scoring tool to create these standing obstacles. So what they did was, rather than taking L braces to create walls for their cart, they used an L brace and used it differently to create the stand in the back of their obstacle. That's what helps it to stand up. And in some cases, if the obstacles were too big, we also taught them how to create bases for their obstacles to help keep it standing upright. And then students would design, color, and cut out the obstacles. You can see lots of different examples here. Like this one's pretty cool. Students created a light bulb store, and then an electric wire that transmits electricity to the house. So some ideas around electricity and things like that. I think this was like a gas pump in a car, gas station. I'm not sure. I think this is like a truck, like a big truck or something. And then students also applied their skills with a hot glue gun, what they learned, how to use it safely and appropriately in order to glue all these pieces together, right? So they would create the L brace and hot glue it to the back, or maybe hot glue some pipe cleaners or some stuff to the base. This picture down here, this one's kind of cool. I'll come back to that picture because I want to highlight something in this picture down here in just a minute. But this was the first step, creating the obstacles. I think they had to create at least 5 obstacles, but if they had more time, they could create more obstacles, which many teams did. They had to create at least 5. And then the third construction technique that we taught them was something called the flange, which is, in this case, taking a toilet paper tube, kind of see it here and here, and cutting spokes out of the bottom that would then allow them to hot glue it to a flat surface and make it easier to affix the flange or the toilet paper tube to another surface. And the purpose of this was to create a standing end goal, right? So they had to build a platform, and I didn't mention it here, but some of them did apply the L brace here for walls. And then they had to create at least 2. Many of them created more than 2 because it would allow it to stand up better. 2 or more flanges with toilet paper tubes, and they hot glued those flanges to the bottom of their end goal, and that would allow it to stand up. Okay, so they were introduced to the flange using toilet paper tubes. Its purpose was to create legs. We went over the steps, showed them how to create a flange, how to cut the toilet paper tube appropriately so that all the legs would be equal and even. And then we also reminded them about appropriate safety and use of scissors and hot glue gun. And then each team developed their own end goal. You see so many different varieties. There wasn't one end goal that was the same as the other. They all had different ideas. They worked as a team to develop those ideas and combine them. This team here created like a cool ramp for theirs. We didn't even talk about a ramp. They went ahead and added that on themselves. A place for like Dash to he can't actually drive up, but their idea was Dash could drive up and deliver something into their end goal here. These guys made some walls and some decorations inside, and this kid's working on his flange here. So this was developing their end goal. I wanted to backtrack because what I thought was cool was some of the students, even though we didn't tell them this, we didn't invite them to do it, but they took the idea of the flange and applied it back to their obstacle. Right. So in this case, this student went a step further and applied a couple different techniques of their own choice to one of their obstacles. He actually built a flange in order to display his obstacle a little higher up on their mat. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing I wanted to share about that. So kids taking these ideas and applying them in different ways. Okay, so they built their obstacles, they built the end goal, and then they lay it all out on their mat in different places. And then as a team, they work together to create a program that has Dash of driving around the obstacles, avoiding them, and then stopping at the end goal, getting to the solution, right? And so here they're applying learned skills. We spent, get some context, we spent a whole semester of their kindergarten year last year learning how to program Dash. And not just learning how to program Dash, but how to work in a team to program Dash, right? So they were working in Dash teams. And here, so they're familiar with this process of working together with Dash on a mat. It's not something we had to teach in this particular project, but you could if you didn't have the time beforehand. And here, so their students are using their programming skills from kindergarten to create their own program for Dash. They're developing essential skills like teamwork, program testing, trial and error, trying something and failing and then making adjustments, and having that happen a lot, right? They're not going to get the program done in 5 minutes. There's going to be a lot of mistakes and failures, but learning to work through those things, and then learning what good programmers do. So we have a couple of discussions around this where, because they're creating a program together for Dash, and they're not being prompted, right? every mat is different. The obstacles are different sizes. The end goal is in a different place. So they have to figure out the path for Dash to take. And so we talk about, as a good programmer, we do this one step at a time. We're not going to bring a bunch of blocks together in the programming tool and then test it out, because it's really hard to figure out where the bugs are in that case. So we show them an example of how do we program one step at a time. We go one block, test it with Dash, see if he does it well. If he does it really well, then we add the next block. If he doesn't do it well, we take a step back, we figure out what the bug is, talk to our team about it. They test their program each step of the way and apply different debugging strategies. And so here we can, this is just the other day, sorry. Just the other day, we moved into that program testing phase. These are teams working together with their obstacles and their end goals, trying to figure out the best path for Dash to take. And there's some rules in place, right? We don't want Dash to knock over any obstacles. We don't want him to run into anything. He shouldn't be crashing into his end goal. So it's finding a safe path that Dash can take to get to that solution at the end, right? Their climate action Dash. Okay. There we go. And then we haven't done this yet. We're actually planning on doing this next time. But the culmination of this is a Seesaw documentation activity. And what we typically do with other projects at my school is we'll at the end or during the process, students are recording videos and taking pictures and documenting what they're doing, and they're uploading that to Seesaw so the families at home can see what they've accomplished. And so we plan to do that here. So we've done that a lot. So this is another applied learning, applying a learned skill of documenting their work. So what we plan to do is create a Seesaw activity where students will take photos of everything they've made. So they'll take a picture of the cart, they'll take a picture of Dash with the cart to see how it attaches, pictures of the obstacles they make in the end goal. And then they will have also recorded a video of Dash completing their program successfully on the mat. And then they take all of that media, pictures and video, and they'll upload it into this Seesaw activity that highlights the construction techniques and the tools they learned and the skills they've gained, and what the end result of all this was. And then that Seesaw activity will be shared with families at home, again, so that we're communicating their child's successes at home as well. And so that's sort of what the end result of this project will be. All right, where am I at? I got time left. I'm happy to take questions or jump back to anything that we've done. If you guys want me to clarify anything or walk through any, is there any questions? And how many Dash robots do you have for your class? Good question. So we have, I think we have 12 Dash robots, and in our first grade classes, we see a whole class of, trying to do the math in my head. I think it's like a class of 28 or so. So so we have them in groups of 3, and each team uses 1 Dash. Yeah, that's how it works out for us. So, and that's, and I think I forgot to mention earlier, that's something I need to add to this, that in our, in these teams of 3, let's out of the way really quick. Go back, where was I? Sorry, let me find the, so in these teams of 3, what we practiced in kindergarten, what we continue to practice at the beginning of the semester, is that they take on these 3 jobs. So in a team of 3, in a Dash team, one of them is a lead programmer, one of them is what we call the robot wrangler, and one of them is a documentarian. And they rotate through these jobs as they complete their program. So the lead programmer is the one programming on their iPad and testing it with Dash. The robot wrangler is the one that retrieves Dash and resets him back at start and cleans up the mat if things need to be put back. And the documentarian is recording a video of every test run until they get a successful run of the program. And once the documentarian has recorded a video of Dash being successful, they rotate jobs and they take on a different job. And so the end goal of that is so that every kid gets a video Dash being successful so that they can share that in Seesaw later on. So that's why we work in teams of 3. So it's 1 robot per team of 3 usually. Do you check what the kids want to post on Seesaw to their families before they post it? So for us, like the students don't post their own things. Like we set up a Seesaw activity like a template with pages kind of pre-made and the boxes preset where we want the pictures to go. And then as a class, we'll walk through that process of uploading everything into that Seesaw activity, talking them through where the pictures need to go and where the videos need to go. And then they all submit that activity together. And then us as the teachers will go back into Seesaw later and approve those posts so that families can see them later. So it's not, we don't do like free posting of things in Seesaw. Our Seesaw is a more controlled environment, and they don't do it very often. They'll do a Seesaw activity at the end of a project or like a Dash challenge. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to toss them in the chat, or you guys can unmute yourselves and you can just talk about this or other things. I'm curious to see if anybody else is doing anything related to this with Dash or engineering and design or construction. We've also we've kind of taken the same idea of using the sustainable development goals, and we did a project with 3rd and 4th grade using little bits. If you guys are familiar with little bits, are like they're magnetic snap together circuits. And so with them, we introduced them to the sustainable development goals and the climate action superheroes, and then they created like a digital tug of war game for 2 players to play, and the game was themed around their climate action superhero, and whoever wins a round of that game, they would be given a question related to the sustainability development goal with possible answer choices. And if they got the answer right, they would win that round and get a point. And then 2 players would play a couple of rounds of that. So the questions would focus on things related to pollution and trash and things related to healthy eating and stuff like that. So they had to do a little bit of research, and teams developed their own questions. And the goal there was to educate others around the goals and the issues surrounding these goals while they play this little bits tug of war game. So it's been kind of cool, taking this idea of sustainable development goals and applying them in different ways where kids are creating things for others while also educating and teaching others about it or applying their understanding. Yeah. At the end here, I've got my contact information there. So feel free, if you guys, I'm more than happy to answer questions. If there's something you want to revisit later on and kind of tweak or adjust on your own, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to answer questions or help talk through some ideas with other people. How many weeks have you been? Oh yeah, that's a good question. So this for us, because we see our students once every 6 days, right? So we are a specials class that rotates through other specials. And so we're one among a handful of different classes like music and PE and stuff like that. So we see them once every 6 days. So this project has spanned, I want to say almost a semester. I think we spent, oops, sorry, it's my alarm for the time. I think we spent maybe 2 or 3 classes at the beginning of the year reviewing programming with Dash and the team jobs and things like that. And then we got into the project, and we're just wrapping it up now. I think we're at our second class. We're going to be in our second class in the second semester, but I think that lengthwise, it's been about a semester long project. Yeah, because of the frequency we see them, and then the fact that there's many different parts here. So it's we're teaching them several different. So like in one class, we taught them the L brace, and then they spent maybe 20 minutes building their cart with the L brace. And in the next class, we introduced the wheel and axle, and while they were continuing to work on their L brace during that class, we were pulling small groups to build and glue their wheel and axle. So like every step was like one class, and our classes are 45 minutes with first grade. So you have 45 minutes to teach them the concept, and then they apply it by building things. Good questions, Lacey. Anybody use use Dash in their classes or at their schools? Is anybody not familiar with Dash? I'm happy to talk more about that. Oh, okay, yeah, you guys do at Seabury, yeah. Okay, what school you at, Lacey? Sacred Hearts. Yeah, I'm sorry, I said the wrong name. That's right. Yeah, Dash is they're really great. They're very kid-friendly kid-friendly programming tools, and they use we have iPads, right? And so there's an app on the iPad for Dash called Blockly, and it is a block-based programming language. They snap blocks together, and then when they press play, Dash performs those blocks, such as driving forward, turning, making sounds, changing his lights, talking. He can do lots of different things. Dash even has sensors on him, so he has proximity sensors that detects what's in front of him and what's behind him. We haven't really gotten into those things yet. I think for this particular project, they mainly just focused on driving blocks, right? To drive Dash in a certain path around the obstacles and the end goal. But they've had lots of experience with that in kindergarten, so they came into first grade, with those skills already. So we didn't have to spend too much time teaching them the programming concepts. They were already very familiar with that. So this was like, more focused on construction techniques and learning new tools, but then an opportunity to apply those skills from kindergarten and putting this all together into this mission for Dash. All right, everyone. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. I hope you learned something. Hope you got some ideas from it. Feel free to bookmark the presentation website. It'll be up and available after today, guaranteed. And you guys enjoy the rest of iTeach808.
Yeah, so mahalo to Michael Fricano and for everyone's participation. I hope you'll find this session helpful and make some valuable connections. Please help us complete the survey on the iTeach808 website. I'll link it in the chat. The survey will be sent to the email address that you registered with. Please make sure to check your spam folder for any emails from iTeach808hawaii@gmail.com. You'll be entered to win one of 20 $5 Target gift cards if you complete the survey by February 4th. Thank you for being here today. Feel free to join the other sessions coming up. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.